I've bootstrapped 3 businesses into over 6 figures. What am I saying? 7 figures. Yep. And all I've known is bootstrap. I'm like, why do you have to put your money in me? If I can't bet on myself, why should anyone bet on me? That's been the mindset. So I know how to grind. But then it takes a completely different mindset when you're trying to build something that is hugely impactful. And to do that, you need to wipe off what you know and try to embrace something new. It means you have to be a kid again. This is amazing.
Thank you.
And again, just thanks for considering me. I think that what you're doing is fantastic. It reminds me of when the 50 Voices in the Shadow was written.
50, is that a book?
So, yeah, it's a book by Black Women in Tech.
Okay.
So I was one of those, and I'm just trying to share the power of what happened. And so there are 50 Black women in here, all in tech, doing different things. And we're just, it was when the lunch then happened, the kids were on holiday. So I took them to the lunch. Yeah, that's just because I didn't have anyone to look after them. And then when I saw the power of what that did, they were like, oh, wow, all these women in tech. I said, yes, they're all, oh, how come we don't know them? I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. But they're all doing amazing things. And immediately the book came out, my daughter was first to take it to school. My mom is on page 92. And then I had teachers stopping me to say, oh, wow, I read about your stories. I didn't know all this are happening. So I think for me, it was just like amazing to see the impact just in our primary school, what that made. Now imagine young girls like that now can stand tall and feel like, oh, yeah, I'm good enough. And you just want them to see those sort of representation. And the more they hear, the more they see, the more they believe. So yeah, I think what you're doing is like fantastic. It's going to be tough, but then you can't just stop because you understand the impact, because this is like generational impact.
Yeah, definitely. That story that you just shared now is sort of like, it's such a powerful story. You know, sometimes these people don't see it. If you don't see it, because tech is one of those spaces as well, which is typically male dominated.
Yeah.
Well, white male dominated, if anything. But then you don't come across loads of Black women, especially Black women founders, in that space, and then your children probably haven't seen that much of that.
Of them, yeah. It's like, who do you want to call?
yeah. But it's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think for me, it's just nice that they get to see that I do this. It's very tough, but then coming down here, that was just making me even remember the chat I was just having. And I'm like, gosh, I have my suitcase. I'm sleeping in a hotel in London tonight because I'm on a panel on something tomorrow, 8 a.m. Do I go home and come from home? It's just so much you have to think about. And you're just wondering, why are you doing this? And once you remember that, okay, I want my daughter to understand that she can't do anything she wants to be. I've always found myself in male-dominated things. I just don't understand. I don't see the gender. And you see the gender later when people start talking about it. So forget the fact that you're female, you're Black, you're blue, you're green. Just do you, and people will recognize it. And if they don't, you make them recognize it.
You see, so with yourself, because you was in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And then you worked in a city for a bit. Well, for over a decade, I think it was. And then you've run some businesses.
Yeah.
And it's like in all of these different, I don't know what it was like in Nigeria, but in the city, and then in the work you're doing now, it's like it's all male dominated. And you don't come across a lot of people that look like you, probably.
That's it. You don't. But then when you do, you're like, oh, wow, okay. And that's kind of like one of the things. It's going to take not this generation, maybe not the next one, to actually really, really get this change happen. That when you walk into a building and they're equals. But it's never going to happen if we don't start. So I keep telling my kids that if you want to be successful, there's just going to be fewer people like you as you move up the ladder, and that you just have to be comfortable with that. But what you have to do is to remain there so more people like you can be in there and see that it's possible. So yeah, male dominated, no male dominated. It's just how you want to see it. So I think I grew up knowing that. Maybe I think growing up in Nigeria was an advantage because I never felt like Black, because everybody is. So that just didn't affect my confidence in terms of who I am. I already knew who I was. I came to the UK, I was already 21. So it's like, I know, I'm comfortable in who I am. I don't need anyone to define me. Do you get? But then it's now, and I think having strong parents as well definitely helped me. Seeing how hard they worked and knowing that they're not like the richest of the richest. They're even not like the proper middle class. They're just almost middle class, you know. But then they want to give their kids the best. They want to try. But in order for them to do that, they have to go to work in the morning, just like you're doing. And then in the evening, have something else on as a side hustle. So I grew up saying side hustle, like side hustle. So I remember my brothers remind me of what I used to do when I was 8 years old. I'm like, really, that's true.
What was that?
Because my mom is not home. She comes back late. She's a midwife, so sometimes she has the night shift. And if my dad comes back, he probably gets back around 7, but we get back from school after lessons like 4 o'clock. So then I have to make sure my younger brothers have their meal, have their, so it's like my mom will have kept a note. I'll just read everything and I'm like, oh, you're having this. No, you don't touch that. You touch this. So it's like you're already showing leadership skills without even knowing that was what that was. And until my brother was saying to my daughter that, oh, do you know what your mom was doing? At 8 years old, she was already in charge of everything. Like she was running the show. I'm like, that's true. Oh, wow. Yeah. I was kind of like doing that. And, but then I really came into my leadership. I really started to see it when I was 16. And this was when I had to basically run almost like an entire company by myself with 14 workers, pay them, talk to suppliers, stock everything. It was mad.
At 16 years old?
Yeah, and this was back in Nigeria. So I learned so much from that. It's like, so the backstory of that, my mom, like I said, she's a midwife. My dad's an engineer. And my mom works for the local council. And sometimes you have to run the shift and things like that. But she didn't got this opportunity to go to the US to do midwifery for like, I think it was like a 6-month contract. And she thought it was just so good to turn down. So she just said, okay, what's going to happen? And at the same time, I just finished my high school. So I was waiting to get my results in order to get into to figure out what university I'm going into. So you still have like some time at home trying to figure all of that out. And so, like I said, my dad doesn't come home till later in the evening because he has to go to work, then come back. Then he has these business centers. Like, how do you describe business center in 2023? So this was before people had personal computers. So you have a typist, you have photocopier machines, fax machines. So people come in there to pick up their faxes. People come in there to make phone calls. People that have projects, we get people typing up their project.
Sounds like an internet cafe.
Yeah, internet cafe. Yeah. But now I can't even remember internet cafe, but that was then. And but then he had multiple locations. So when he finishes in his office, he'll go to the one closer to his office. At the back of my house, there was a very big. Do you know the containers in Tedbree? You know those containers. Oh God, how do I describe this? So you know the containers, like that's what I know it to be called. It's like they use them in shipping things all over the world.
Oh, those like,
very large,
big rectangular ones.
Those ones, yeah. So imagine having 4 of that opened up and turned into like a big shop, and then all that is filled up with is business center, and that was what I had to run. So he had a business center on the side. He had the barbing salon where people come to barb their hair. Then my mom had something similar on the side, which was like a mini supermarket where an off license. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had to then pay all these workers at the end of the month. So this is a 6-month project for me. I had to pay all these workers. I have to stock the shop. I had to make sure everything was running well. So for me, I just I thought, oh, why did she do this? But quickly I realized that, oh, she thinks I can handle it. So I said, okay, I better make her proud. So when she returns, she finds her shop better than she left it, and I have to then do accounting to my dad every single month. So quickly, I started to remember demand and supply. So people come in, oh, can we have Ribena? I'm like, why doesn't she have Ribena? Okay, all right, who has Ribena? Then I'll make like I'll have to go find where to buy that in bulk, have negotiations with them, understand the margins, understand what we need to do. And this was like, then you have the big Coca-Cola bringing in multiple, giant of water, Coke, there's just so many different types of suppliers that you have to deal with. So I learned a whole lot from that. But then the real change happened for me when every Friday I have to go deposit money in the bank. So I overheard these ladies talking about African prints. It's called Ankara. So they're like, if only they could get this African print brought to them. There's no time. I'm like, that's a business. So that was I'm like, because I also had a friend that goes to Benin Republic, which is a neighboring country, Nigeria. And she was always telling me about, they have beautiful African fabrics. I'm like, so if I could ask her how to get the African fabrics, I already have customers. And I did that, and I'm like, okay, so how do I convince my dad? That's never going to happen. So we have to go and buy this. Can it be a day trip? She said, yes, but you have to leave very early in the morning. So we left before, as my dad was going. We left, and then we went to stock up. And then I came back before he got back. I'm like, wow. And I already had people to buy it. So I just went to the shop. So how do I convince them to buy this? So I came up with a strategy. And the strategy, now I know the strategy is common, but then it was like a novelty to me. So I went to the women, I just went to deposit, and I'm like, by the way, auntie, I've got these African prints, and I've got quite a number. I overheard you the other day saying this. And you're like, oh, really? Okay, you wait on the corner. And later she called the other ladies, and they started to take a look. And I'm like, okay, do you know what will happen? If you buy more than 2, then you don't have to pay me today. You pay me at the end of the month, and you get a 10% discount. And they're, oh, really? So everybody bought more than 2. So I didn't go back with anything. They bought everything. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Yeah. And the markup was already really, really good. Before you know what's happened, when are you going to have more? I'm like, so they need more. Okay. I'm like, next month, I'll have more. And that was how that gig started going. Before you know what's happening, I was able to return the capital. And then I had my own, and I was already doing 2-3 banks at this time, just giving them the African prints. So I learned all of that. When I got into uni, I did the same thing, just figuring out what students want. Then they wanted their names on their belts. There was a trend going on. And then you have your name on your belt just with stones on it. Right. And so I'm like, oh, who makes that? Okay, all right, then it's custom. So you have to pre-order and then pay me first. And then, so I started to learn the act of business right from there. So like I said, it was just nice seen my parents do it. And I think I just stumbled onto it. And I've always known since then that I've been an entrepreneur. I've done so many things.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like, you started business very young, like from 16 years old. You said from you were younger, but 16 years old, you was doing the business center.
Yeah.
And then going into university and then doing the belts and that kind of thing. And then what I'm wondering is, like, at such a young age, 16, back home in Nigeria, did you face any challenge, especially you're dealing with older people, like having to manage them and direct them? Do you have that?
Yeah, of course. But then when you're that young, you're learning things without even knowing. It's just doing it. So remember, there's no pressure. I don't have to make money, but I want to make money. So because of that, I didn't. So this thing about failure wasn't even a consideration, and that's actually the best way to run a business. But as far as I was concerned, this was just it was a hobby. Now I can really see that it's a business, you understand? So the challenges of, who is this young girl that is just selling this? So I don't have to tell them it's my business. I have to go on that, I have this. So they feel, definitely, it must be her mom. Just graduate, go with it. It's my mom. So it just go with it. But at the end of the day, I think great question. Thinking about it, I think when you give people what they want, they don't really care where it's coming from.
Where did that come from? Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did your parents encourage you? Like, where did that come from at that young age?
I don't. So, like I said, I think because I had to run this old the barbing salon, the off license, and that at 16, I just loved it. So the very first thing when they gave it to me to do, I was like, why? I felt that why would they do that? This is unfair. I'm meant to be out there playing. So really, I didn't want it. But then when I started to do it, it was fun. I was like, oh, economics. Demand, supply. You give people what they want. When you have a lot of this, when this is a hype, you give them a bargain. So I was just coming up with stuff. And now that I'm much older and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, wow. As in, that was like, that was a mentorship program. It was an accelerator program on its own. Without me even thinking that was what was happening. I learned so much from that. I learned the power to bargain. I learned how to walk away from deals. I learned how to address customers. I learned, just from so many things, like because you're talking to people, you're meeting hundreds, if not, more than 100 of people every single day. And this is every type of person. Think of the barbing salon. You have a little boy is going to be crying. He wants to, someone has to hold him. But then you're also wondering, I don't want this boy on this chair because we'll have probably cut two other adult hair at this time. But all right, at the end of the day, we don't discriminate. So you're learning different type of things while you're doing this business, and you're like, okay, you're paying adults. Remember this is like a little girl telling these guys, here is your salary. This is the basic. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And some of them are on commission. It's like, I also had to build employee rapport in that sort of way that, it's still just Tommie. It's no, I just happen to have to do this. You understand? So thinking back and going through all the other things I've done, I can see me taking the knowledge that I learned from that into a lot of things without knowing, because all this is like subconsciously doing it.
And then after you've left them, you went to university in Nigeria and you came to the UK, and that's when you started to...
Oh, my story coming to the UK is an exciting one.
What's the
Because
story?
it has an entrepreneurial part in it.
How did that happen?
So this is me now, like, okay, Dad, I need to come to the UK. And it's like, you must be joking. Like, how?
Yeah.
Who is going to pay for coming to study in the UK? And I'm coming to study ACCA, So I said, you don't have the money? All right, we'll figure it out. So this is me now. Already, I have friends that do, like, there's ushering jobs. Do you know what ushering jobs are? So let me explain it. So it's like you'll have like these big events and you need people to like distribute flyers at the door that are like, we'll give you, welcome to this event. And they're all pretty much wearing the same attire. So, and then they pay them. So I had these friends. I think I've done one gig at that time. I'm like, okay, so if I do a bit more ushering jobs, I might get, but I realized, oh God, that's going to take a long time. I need to pay the school fees quickly. So this is why I went into modeling. And as I was just lucky, I would say. But then luck only finds who is looking for something. I was desperate to look for something. But then I also knew my integrity matters. And I wanted to do things that I could be proud of as well. So I looked at what are the skills I had. What can I do? People tend to say, oh, Tommie, you've got a pretty face. I'm like, all right, let's put it to use. So what can we do here? I'm like, who are these girls on this calendar, on these billboards? How do they get it? And I landed a Coca-Cola billboard. And that was how I got my money to come to school. So I was on like a few calendar billboards around that time, which was incredible. So I used that and I just told my dad, I've paid the school fees. Like, how? I'm like, look at it. And it was so wow, like just you think outside the box. And I'm like, yeah, because I desperately want this. I think there's nothing here for me. And I can see what is for me if I go out of the country and if I try to do things this way. So I came to the UK. I don't have a whole lot in my hands. And I came a bit late. So I got to school thinking everything was just, you have this whole idea of the UK. Everything. And then they're like, oh, sorry, there's nowhere for you to stay. So I called my dad, I'm homeless. And then he's like, oh, yeah, let's call your cousin. So there's this big cousin that I have. And I call her auntie as tradition, because they're all way bigger than you. So and she lives in Elephant and Castle. And so she was so excited to have someone. So she said, oh, come over. And then I got there. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? It's like a house, it's a 2 or 3 bedroom house, and every single room was rented. Like there's no living room. Everyone, the sort of, it's every, and then in her room was her, a daughter, and her a boyfriend that's at the time. So now 4 of us in this one room. Wow. I'm like, oh my God, what is London? This is not London.
London's expensive.
Oh yeah. So that was like a very quick wake up call. But remember, I hustled to come to the UK, so I wasn't coming here to joke at all. So she said, oh, Tommie, I've got a job for you. I was excited. Oh, wow, easily. She said, okay, this job is a cleaning job, yeah? But they have 1 key, and they need 2 people that know each other. She's willing to do it. Will I be willing to do it? I'm like, a job is a job. Let's go. Thinking I can do it, really. And then we started. And then the first day, the cleaning thing was in Regent Street. And then the first day we were like cleaning, and she's like, that's not how to do it. You clean. I'm like, oh my God, my back. After like the first week, I'm like, nah, this is not. So she said, no, Tommie, they're not going to pay you. I'm like, no, they could keep the money. I can't do this. And she's like, she was so angry, but I'm like, I'm really sorry. I know this means a lot, but I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, Tommie, what's next for you? I said, I'm going to take a bus. Whatever bus I see now, I take. And wherever this bus is going, that's my last bus stop. And I start looking for work. So I took bus 452 from Elephant and Castle. And it went all the way to Baker Street. And I came down Baker Street. I crossed the road. And I started working. I remember going past Easy Cafe. And I looked at it because of the cafe experience, And I kept walking past. And I saw the shop with a sign. Assistant needed. So it's like a place where they sell DVDs. It's called That's Entertainment. And I went in, and I'm like, yeah, the sign. And the lady's like, where's your CV? I'm like, I'll be right back. And then I went straight to the Easy Cafe, and then I just typed out a CV.
There and
then. I'm like, oh, they taught me in school. What's a CV? I went to Yahoo. What's the sample? Oh, that's it. And I went, I couldn't have walked like more than 10 steps. Then I got a phone call. I'm like, yeah, you're up for an interview. Where interview is in Victoria. Remember, I don't know anywhere. Where is Victoria? So she's like, get on bus 82.
So the interview was the same day?
Exactly the same day.
Wow.
Everything happened in like 30 minutes. And then I got on bus 82. I got the job. And I'm like, that easy? And to get myself into corporate, it also took me talking. So at the job, a lot of people do not speak English. So I speak English, but I have Nigerian accent and I deal with it. And with there, I'm basically selling to them. And then one of the ladies there just said, oh, you sound so educated. I said, I am. And then she said, I'm like, I studied insurance. She's like, oh, wow. My sister has an insurance, works at an insurance company, and they're looking for staff. Should I tell them about you? I'm like, please. And that's it. Before you know what's happening, I landed an insurance job. So that's how I got into corporate. So my first corporate was AIG. I was selling.
Global firm.
Yeah. I was selling, what's it called? I was an insurance salesperson. And the first month of being in AIG, I just kind of broke 3 records. So I had the best insurance salesperson, the best newcomer of the month, and the best something. I can't remember the third one. But it was just like, this is now me now realizing you can sell. Because what I realized was, if I get into your home to sell you insurance, you're buying. So I have pre-qualified you on the phone. And by the time I'm getting into your home, like, your hesitations should just be out of the way, because I believed in the product. So, and basically that's how I found myself in corporate. From there, people started talking about, mortgages. I'm like, what mortgages? I Googled that. I realized that, for you to be able to sell mortgages, you have to have a license. How do you get a license? I did that. I got myself a license. But then it took, I failed. I picked myself up. I became homeless at some point. And before you know what's happening, I found my way into being a mortgage advisor. So it's just been like, now it's easy to say.
Yeah.
But when it was happening, it just felt like, oh God, it's just, I just had to drive. That's all I could see. I'm like,
It sounds like you're very, very driven from a young age up and from all those very early years.
yeah,
That you sound like you're the kind of person that you know what you want and you're just going to go and get what you want. Like, all right, I know I want to go to the UK. I know I want to go to London. I'm going to go and I'm going to make it work. I know I want to do this. I'm going to make it, get a bus to wherever, and I'm going to make it work. And I feel like that kind of a mindset is very, very important. If you're trying to be successful in whatever it is you want to do, I think you've got to have a level of drive and that level of tenacity to go for what you want and not give up when you face some kind of a temporary failure or some kind of temporary setback.
yeah.
It seems like you had that from a very young age.
So I agree with you, but I had that not even knowing that I had that. But now I could, and I've done so many things that I've failed at as well. So it's not like everything has been great.
Yeah.
But I think what I've started to learn and what I appreciate from the journey is the fact that, yeah, the tenacity is there, is the fact that I was not scared. So remember, I don't know what's on the other side of the door. The boss, I don't know where I was going to land. Someone said, my sister has someone insurance company. I don't even know what AIG was, but I was very curious. So immediately I heard that, I Googled it, I know what it is. So showing up, I'm turning up like I've known this all my life, and it's about when it matters, turn up. And that's what I started to figure out. I'm like, the conversation with my dad to say I'm coming to I knew he didn't have the money, but I'm like, what if he does? Just ask him. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's always that. And in what we're doing now, all the different businesses we've helped and all the things that I've done so far, I just feel like life is like a dot, and everything you're doing, the dots are scattered everywhere. Sometimes they start to join. And then you start to see, oh, wow, I can do this because I did that. I can do this because I did that. Now this makes sense. I have this experience. So I'm seeing everything just kind of coming together. And they're coming together in a different manner.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of life. You try lots of different things here and there. And then later on down the line, it's like, okay, this experience from wherever helped me. This experience, I met this person, I met that person. These things all come together. It's like a big melting pot. And then you end up on the other side of the person you are with all of these different experiences and things you've been through that have shaped you into the person you are. And you seem as well like you have a knack of finding how do you put it, like spotting opportunities from when you were young again, because I'm like going back to childhood again, from when you're listening out to conversation, hearing people talking about Ankara Prince, oh okay, I can do that. And then you're working in this other job, and then you're hearing someone say, oh, like they're looking the insurance job, and you end up doing that, but I spot an opportunity. And then again, after when you've started to make that transition out of the corporate world into the Tevin, and again, that was another opportunity that through your own experience, but it's an opportunity. You've kind of put things here and there. You're like, oh wait, there's an opportunity there. University of the Belts, you're listening. Oh, there's a problem. Maybe perhaps there's an opportunity, and probably a number of other things. So you're listening, thinking, there's an opportunity there. Let me give this a try.
You're spot on that one, and I think that now that I think that's exactly what it is. I've just had a curious mindset. It's like, and it's not I think it goes even beyond curiosity. It's all about, I really feel like if you put me in the desert, I'll find water. I just believe in myself. Do you understand? So, and I don't think anyone has two heads. I can't see anyone with two heads. So why can't I become whatever I want to become? I think I'm my own limitation. And because I have that mindset, and I always want to know what's going on that could benefit me, because if you're not listening, then you don't even know it's happening. So you have to have a curious mindset. You have to have your ears on the ground, and not just to only things. And sometimes that could seem selfish because you're only trying to listen to things that will favor you. But that doesn't work. You have to have your ears on the ground to even things that don't concern you, because it concerns someone that you care about, and then you could quickly tell them. So when they find things that concern you, they'll tell you. And you're not doing it. It might not even be the same person you told that's telling you. So it's like a boomerang thing. And so I've seen people say, how come you know a lot about everything? I'm like, I don't even know a lot about enough things yet, But that's because someone is talking about this. I'm like, I put my time. I'm like, what is this about? And then I research into it, and I'm like, okay, I have an understanding. Do I want to know more? Then I press the accelerator. Am I cool with what I know? Then I'm like, all right, I'll just do me. And that's basically how I run this. So it's like my team would tell you, oh, people say, does she code? I'm like, I've dabbled into it, but I wouldn't say I'm an engineer. But then but I won't be shocked tomorrow. Because if someone is about to just get up and say, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, you haven't got 3 heads, you learned it. I can learn it too. So that is that mindset that I just feel like nothing is impossible. I feel like impossible is 2 letters too long. And because I have that mindset, I just understand that it's going to be hard. I'm not kidding myself. It's going to be tough. There's going to be sacrifices. Provided the sacrifice is worth it, then maybe it's worth doing.
Do you ever get scared when you're try and branch out to new things?
I think the older I get, remember it was easy when you don't have kids, you don't have anything. It's just me, so I have nothing to lose. Now it's a bit different. And so now I start to see the fear that I didn't have before start to cripple in. And these are things that I'm trying to, and all I have to do is to remember the Tommie that was 22, the Tommie that had no fear, and then I just like go back into that again, like what made me fearless. And there's so much power in being fearless because, we say fear is a lie, but then it really comes. When it gets you, it gets you. And this is you trying to walk into a door. I'll give you an example. Like what we're doing right now with Tech 1M and things like that. I've bootstrapped 3 businesses into over 6 figures. What am I saying? 7 figures. Yep. And this is no mean feat. And all I've known is bootstrap. I'm like, why do you have to put your money in me? If I can't bet on myself, why should anyone bet on me? That's been the mindset. So I know how to grind. But then it takes a completely different mindset when you're trying to build something that is hugely impactful. And to do that, you need to wipe off what you know and try to embrace something new. It means you have to be a kid again. And to be a kid again, it takes challenges. There's going to be things that, you were already set in your ways. And now you will need to change. So I think those are things that I'm learning. That's my latest issue. And I'm embracing that. I'm seeing myself like, oh, wow. All right, maybe I'm not that, maybe I know all that in that area. You need to learn more in this area. You need to listen. You need to take feedback. You need to look at who have done this in a way that you admire. And you need to, if you can speak to them, speak to them. You need to find more people and listen to people. Have more people that you can, within your own network that you can actually really reach out to and be able to say, oh, yeah, I don't know this, help me. So I think those are kind of like the areas that so that's a little bit scary, but even though it's scary, I just know it wasn't, I'm not one that kid myself that it's going to be easy. So, when you already know it's not going to be easy, but you just don't know how hard is it going to get. So I'm like, how hard is this going to get? And I'm like, okay, but I know regardless of how hard it gets, I don't have the mindset of, no, I'm not doing this again. I'm just going to figure out how to jump through whatever comes in. And I keep saying, when you're a determined entrepreneur, it's like having a boat on an island and you have to burn the boat. People don't burn the boat. If you don't burn the boat, it's like you have somewhere else you could go. You could still sail out. But once the boat is burnt, that's it. You have to find water. There's water on the island. You have to find food. You have to make a home out of the trees. You have to, and before you know what's happening, you build this beautiful mountain and this beautiful mansion that people can see when they're flying high, and now becomes a destination. Anything is possible. So, but then is it going to be hard? Of course. You will learn how to make fire with rocks. You will learn the things you don't, and hopefully if you have companion on there, then maybe, and those are kind of like your support system that can help you through this journey. But support system or not, they can only help you as far as they can help you. You have to be a big believer in yourself and not let the world tell you, this is possible, that's not possible. And this is a lot of things I see, especially from from a lot of women, and also from a lot of people of color. And it's not, it's, how to put it, it's, for women, it's a matter of we've had to fight, and we're still fighting this equality thing. And there's a mindset that we have that for us to go out for something, everything has to check. All the check boxes have to all be ticked for you to actually really go out for this thing. And sometimes, and I do the same, I feel like there's an application, I have to make sure that I check all the boxes. Or they've written there, oh, you must make this amount. And you're like, oh, I'm just, £5 shy. I'm not quite there. I won't check the box. Well, a guy doesn't think like that. They don't check the box. All right, yeah, I'm almost there. Round it up. So it's like, how do you have that sort of courage? You have to develop it. And those are kind of like the things that I'm finding that, oh, Tommie, no. You can see, even though, yeah, you don't meet the criteria, you make yourself meet the criteria. Let them tell you, no, what's the worst that's going to happen? Apply. They'll check it out. If she doesn't meet, that is, you applied. But if you're not in the game, nothing is going to happen. If you're not in the game, no one is going to see you.
How do you develop that courage?
I think it's something, right now I'm going through there's coaching. There's looking at people that have it. I can sense people that have it. There's some people that walk in the room and I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Like he walked in the room. This person is in the room. And I'm like, how do you make your presence known in the room? Because for me, I just don't know how to BS things. I don't know either, and you're like, okay, there's a way. You don't want to do that because your integrity, if there's anything I've learned, your integrity is the only thing you have. So you can go broke. If you lose your integrity, you're done. So that you have to keep, so you can't go on those sort of tracks. But you have to say, okay, how did he work? What did he say? How can okay, who is he? What made him or she be able to say that? And then you're like, okay. And then you are practicing. So I'm a work in progress. This is the one thing I see people that have it. I'm like, I want that. I want to be able to walk into a room and be able to, even it's not complete, but I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna change the world. We're the best thing since sliced bread. But it's like, it just feels like it's, how do they call it? Is this soft bragging? Is this soft?
I don't even know what you'd call it. Like I don't know what you'd call it exactly.
Yeah, there's
like having that belief and really having that self-confidence. And
exactly. I think it's just another level of self-confidence. So I used to think I was confident, but I felt like there are areas where, my confidence really shakes. And you're like, oh, should I be here? Should I not be here? Those sort of things. And I'm learning, and this is true. Like I mentioned, there's coaching involved. There's also looking at people and really admiring and understanding that, okay, yeah, this person, they don't really have everything figured out. They also had to get the belief from somewhere, and then you tap into their belief, and then you start to believe. Yeah, a
lot of people don't necessarily have it figured out, I think, but you wouldn't know, maybe because of the way they carry themselves. Some
exactly.
people, that fake it till you make it sort of mantra. Some people are really like that. They'll walk into a room and they can talk and say the most nonsense ever, like where they just believe in themselves, and they've been able to talk themselves into whatever position they're in. I think that's very important.
I find fake it till you make it really hard. It's like it's just hard. But I know people really do that well, and I think sometimes that's what is needed. Like you fake it till you make it. But then if you don't have a knack for it, it's something you'll have to learn and use it at some point, but not necessarily all through life.
It's something you can develop for sure. Like when you talk about men, for example, just maybe being a bit more go-getter in some particular types of situations. Like there's a guy, I know, like there's these two colleagues I used to have actually, and they both, what they do, they applied for a job, I think, and in the job spec, both of them basically didn't have what the job spec was asking for. So the woman was more, more honest and said, I can't do it. Whereas the guy just really bigged himself up, said, I can do it. Got given the job. He didn't know a thing.
Of course.
But he learned on the job. But he didn't know anything. He was telling me, Tevin, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, just going, yeah to everything.
Like, I can do it. Yeah. Got the job. Massive pay rise. And he just learned over time.
Everything over time.
And I think you kind of feel like you when you put yourself into certain positions, you either sink or swim. And oftentimes we can surprise ourselves.
Yeah.
You can surprise yourself by how much you can rise to certain situations and certain tasks.
100%. And then no one is going to give you a chance if you, and I think if that is the meaning of fake it till you make it, then I'm all for that, because no one is going to give you a chance if you don't give yourself a chance. And that's it. It's like, oh, this takes me back to, you say another business, logistics.
Yeah.
So I did a logistic business at some point, and how that basically started was out of curiosity again. So this was when myself and my now husband, we went to Harvard, and then we did some study, and we learned some things there, and we wanted to okay, this time around, if we're going to build anything, we're going to try and build a sustainable business. I learned about the whole pain. You're trying to build a painkiller, or you're trying to build a vitamin. So I was trying to figure out, okay, so now I want to really build something that is going to have a legacy. So I saw this person that comes to my house, like the postman, but then this is like parcel force. So they're dropping parcels. So with the guy dropping parcels, I actually know him. I'm like, hey. And I just started to ask questions. And I'm like, how do you get hired? Well, what happened? Tell me about this. And then he told me, I'm like, can I come on a trip with you tomorrow? And we deliver together. And say, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'll come. I'll sit in your van. And then he's like, okay, all right, cool. Are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And then I went in his van, and I started to just question him. And he was very happy that he had a company. And then I said, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I learned quickly that, oh, wow, when there is a demand, when, the whole Christmas season, that the parcels become manic and crazy. Yeah. Most of the big logistic companies, they can't cope with it. So they need to have contingency workers. And these workers need to have their own vans so that they could help in delivering all these parcels. So they have all these companies that give them these workers, and it's never enough. I'm like, tell me more. So before I know what's happening, he said, oh, there are vacancies everywhere. I'm like, show me the next one. So I saw one at Yodel. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to apply. I'm not really going to be a driver, but I just want to know the process. So I went, I applied, I did their induction.
Knowing you wasn't going to take the job.
I'm taking a job. I did the induction. I learned the whole lingua. I'm like, brilliant. And then I just went to create my own logistic company. And I'm like, okay, now I need to find contracts, and I need to find drivers that have van. Then I put an advert on Gumtree. And I'm like, are you a driver? Do you have a van? Apply, and this is reminding me of the fake it till you make it. So the person applying is like, oh, this big company. I'm like, just apply. And I'm like, okay, how do I get the contracts? So drivers started to apply. I'm like, oh wow, we've got 1,000 applications. How do I go through this? So I said, okay, I'm going to list all the different depots. So we call them like depots of this particular brand. So we start with DPD and we list everything. Then we go to Interlink and we list everything. We go to CityLink, then we list everything. So I started to do that, and I went door to door, just slamming the door in my face. You can't see the manager, the receptionist.
They won't even let you in.
They just don't want you to go up. But I guess they're doing their job, because at the end of the day, their job is to, they have lots of people that come in to just say different things. So it's just like, how do I stop you from going there? You don't have the right to be in here. And I remember that day we had a list of 35 places to go. And I got to number 34. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Wow. It's already 6 p.m. I'm going home. I'm tired. Maybe this job is not for me. Maybe. So I remember my husband telling me, Tommie, you wrote 35. We just have to finish. And I'm like, oh God. And this is where support system is important. The last one it was a DPD then. And then I just go into that office. And you remember, this is logistic, male dominated. Me in my high heels, skirt, shirt, corporate looking. And then he's like, and then luckily enough, as we got to the reception, we started to talk to the receptionist. The manager was on his way down to go do something. So he just looked, who are these corporate people? What are they doing here? So he had to have a stare. And then he had the conversation and said, oh, yeah, let them just come with me. And that's how we got the entry. By the time we sat down, he's asking, okay, so we've just got someone that disappointed us. Can you give us 4 drivers tomorrow? I'm like, oh, we're really booked out tomorrow. I don't have any drivers. we're really booked out tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then next tomorrow, yeah, sure, we could give you 3. I don't know where they're coming from, but this is me just like, oh my God. And in my head, I'm like, how on earth am I going to get this?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so you have to do this. By tomorrow, send us this documentation. I've sent this already to the head office. Before that's it, we became a preferred supplier pretty much in one day because they needed this demand. And I remember I did my homework. So everything he was asking, do you have this insurance, that insurance? I had every single thing. So I was prepared. So he was very impressed with that. And then I couldn't sleep that night because I was on the phone calling drivers. Have you got a van? Have you not got a van? Okay, you've got a van. All right. Can you do this? Then I asked them the questions that Yoda was asking me. And with that, I had my 2 drivers. One had a van, one didn't. I'm like, okay, enterprise car renter. Rented the van for the other one. And that's how we got the first contract.
Wow.
And before you know what's happening, this became really big. We had the entire DPD all around the country ringing us to say, oh, I heard you did this for this branch. I heard you did this for that branch. The next year, we had CityLink. The next year, we had FedEx. The next day, we just started to have all of them. And then what really then bust the bubble for me, and I decided to now create an app for this. So I called it Multi-Droppers. We designed the app, we did everything. And then just at the tail end of releasing it, we just saw in the news that CityLink went bust. And then we had over 200 and something thousand worth of invoices unpaid. And I remember the administrator on EY ringing to say, you're not going to get anything back. You'll be lucky to get even £100.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I'm like, gosh. So the fear, as in I was like, what? But good thing, while I was doing all of that, I still had a corporate job. So this is me now. Okay, like back into the corporate world. Let's just face this because all the money is gone. And, so I that just came back to me, as you said, fake it till you make it, because the manager that day must really feel like, yeah, she's got it. She has this, because there's no way she wouldn't have it. She has all this documentation. She definitely has this thing. But I didn't.
That's such an amazing story, and it goes to show like how important it is to be curious that we were talking about before. Like you proactively like saying to the guy that comes to your house, the DPD delivery guy, I think you already said, right?
Yeah.
And be like, oh, let me come to your car, let me listen, let me come and apply for a job. Let me now see exactly how this works. Oh, there's opportunity. Oh, you're over. Oh, too many orders. Oh, okay. And he's sensing an opportunity there, and you're curious. And then within a day, you've gone and secured a contract.
I know.
Like, it's so important, I think, actually, to be curious.
Yeah, and not just that, and then ask the right questions. So, you're asking questions, why? Just ask the right, and also think of the other person, what's in it for them. Because for me, I could have sat him down and asked him all the questions in my house because it's convenient for me, but that's me being selfish. But I know that if I'm sitting in his van, then he'll be free. Then I'm devoting my entire day to him, helping him while he helps me. You get the point.
Yeah.
So this is where people get it wrong, because you tend to you want someone to do you have this time, what is in it for the other person. You want to take exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to also learn to give. In fact, you give first, and then before you know what's happening, it just keeps coming.
No, actually, I definitely agree. Sometimes you probably get it quite a bit. Actually, like, you might maybe get people messaging you on like socials or LinkedIn and asking, can I have a half an hour call with you and stuff? And I'm like, I'm so busy.
Yeah,
I'm so busy. And then it's like without them maybe having some, if they can maybe come with some kind of I can help you, like you've done with the delivery driver, I can come on your route with you and help you. Then it becomes a lot more okay. Whilst you're helping me out, I'll give you something back. Exactly.
At least do your research about the person. Know exactly what they need, what they want. And then if you are placing to them that, oh, I know that you're doing this is how I can help. This is what. So the person says, oh, all right, okay, it's a different approach when it comes to that.
We got the Tech 1M or Tech
Tech
1 million,
1M, yeah.
the long name for it. So I've seen you talk about diversity quite a bit, and the importance of diversifying, particularly the tech space. And I know before we started, we were talking about how undiverse some certain industries are. I work in finance now, incredibly undiverse. I mean, the company I work at is quite diverse, but generally speaking, it's incredibly undiverse. And just in the corporate world in general, is not very diverse at all. And that's something important I've heard you mention before. Was the Tech 1M like your answer to trying to diversify the workplace a bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So I think Tech 1M, diversity, like we mentioned, is very important. And representation, it's highly important. You could see that in, remember the Disney movie, that is not even out yet, the Little Mermaid.
Oh,
I saw the reaction. Yeah, the new one that's coming out.
The black, yeah.
And then it's like, she's black.
Yeah.
That just tells you everything you need to know, because that means that there's not been enough of that, And for me, Tech 1M started as me trying to, we said, okay, we wanted to definitely accelerate the careers of the next 1 million tech talents. That was the initial plan. And that was why the name was Tech 1 million. And this is me looking at myself like, okay, I came to this country from Nigeria. There's a whole lot of talents everywhere in the world. And I felt like creativity is everywhere. It's all about opportunities. If they're given the right opportunities, regardless of your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, whatever, just based on your skills alone and, what you can actually deliver, then I think more people, this so-called wealth will be spread around. And that was the whole thing. I'm like, okay, what if we train a lot of people and then they get to work? Are people going to hire them? So it started like an experiment. So we're like, let's train a lot of people. So this is from my Tedbree company. Let's train a lot of people. Are people going to hire them? Then I saw people start hiring them. I'm like, okay, there's something here. So then we started Tech 1 million. And the whole point in there was the initial plan was that. And I felt, okay, maybe the way we make money from this is if someone hires this person, then the company can then pay us like a finder's fee. So in late 2002, the Google Black Founders Fund of 2022. So that was, I think we're just like a month old then. Then we applied to that. But remember, we've already tested the pilot before forming Tech 1M and becoming a month old. So I went on and we got to the interview stage of that. And quickly, the bubble burst. And Google was like, we really like your idea. However, there are two things. One is the fact that we are not sure if you are a talent acquisition platform or you're an edutech platform. Remember, we train people and then we then hire them out. And then the second thing they said was, within your sales cycle, your customer is last. I'm like, oops, okay, I can't forget those two feedback because it changed everything for me. It changed what Tech 1M is right now. And if there's anything now, I was actually grateful that I applied and got to that stage for them to even hear exactly what we do from my mouth and be able to give us that feedback. And it was very, very tough to take. But what I did next was what got us to where we are right now. I took that and I told my team, they're right. It makes sense. I didn't take it and get angry. I didn't take it and soap. Like, why? What's that going to do? So it's like, you should be, there's people have taken time to give you feedback. People don't have time. So now this is not just anybody. Google has taken time. They paid people to give you feedback. Take it. So I'm like, I took that and I said, what are we going to do? Let's address this one by one. Are we a talent acquisition platform or are we an edutech platform? I'm like, we're both. Why should we be both? Can we be both at the same time? The answer is no, because you will never grow. So what do you do? Because you have to, focus is a big deal.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I'm telling you about my story, you realize that when she sees this nice thing, she goes for it. She goes, focus. How do you focus? So I'm like, at this point in my life, focus is everything. And that is the only way to build something really sustainable, really big, really. So what do we need to? I'm like, okay, we're training people. we're having this boot camp, we're going to carry on because we really think that that is more of a social impact aspect of it. We'll figure out how to monetize that, but then let's really build the core thing we want to build that will help these people in here as well. So we sat down and started all over again and said, let's run a market research. What exactly is the problem within this industry? And then we realized that, oh, wow, the hiring process is broken. It's quite difficult for people to, if you want to hire anyone into your organization, you won't believe it. It takes about 43 days to even find the person. Then it takes you a further 34 days to onboard the person into your organization. That's like the average based on what we're saying, because you want them to get induction, go through this book, understand that before they could read it out, get into the hang of the organization and what is going on. We realized that the pandemic brought in a whole new dynamic. Talents wanted what they want. It became a talent market. So they're the ones saying, I really want to work for this type of company. I now want to work for a company that really believes in my own future. Climate change is real. And I want to work for a company that really believes and wants to invest in sustainability. So we are like, okay, this is what the talents are saying. So we decided, why can't we build a platform that really thinks of talent first, but also understands the business's mission, and then try to bring them together. So this is how we changed the name. So we created an AI algorithm, and in doing that, we asked talent, what type of company do you want to work for? What do you want to do? And this is when you're coming into the platform, and then you start to say, oh yeah, I want to work for a company. Now, yeah, so this is changing the way you apply for jobs, because then you see this job, you just apply. No. So now we're saying, what type of company do you want to work for? So you then tell us, oh yeah, I want to work for a fintech company. The company needs to have this number of employees, or the company needs to be this sort of size. Oh, I don't mind if they're this sort of size, but they need to value diversity and inclusion. They need to value this. They need to value that. Their mission needs to be a big mission. They need to allow remote working, or at least be hybrid. They need, then all of that together, we are learning that, and we're like, okay, so we're going to show you those sort of jobs and companies. So not just the job, because the job can match you, the company might be the wrong one. So this is the difference in the way we then started to do things. So we started to test that. We saw that's interesting. We're like, okay, one of the things that companies told us was that, they want to, especially small businesses, they want a big runway. It's difficult for them to hire someone. Let's say you want to hire someone in America, an engineer in America, it became crazy. Even for us, we were trying to hire talent in Nigeria. They're calling ×5 what they typically call. You're trying to find a software engineer in the UK. Oh my God, it's so difficult. So we were like, okay, it has to be a cross-border platform. It has to be a place where they could find talents anywhere. And if talents are being trained everywhere, talents are everywhere. So what's the whole point? Why can't it be? So what are the barriers stopping them from hiring people abroad? So we ran another survey. And then we realized that, okay, there is compliance issues, there are legal issues, taxes. Also, there is also time zones, there's language barriers, there's all of that. So we're like, okay, which one can we tick off? And which one can we keep working in progress to? So we're like, okay, so if we take off the compliance issue, the tax issue, the payroll issue, would you hire them? Oh yeah, we'll hire them if they have the skills. So this is where we started to do global hiring. And so we started to find local legal advisors, local payroll, local offices in different countries, where if you now come to the platform and say, I need someone in Bulgaria, and you find someone in Bulgaria, you don't need to worry. Within seconds, basically, you can hire this person compliantly, because we then take away all those worry for you. And that is what Tech1M has become today. Now it's like a one intelligent platform for you to discover. You find this talent, the AI matches you. We use video for you to, review this talent very, very quickly. And then when you get to the point of, I want to hire this person, we take away all of those burden away from you. And then we definitely then help you get this person hired. So I think, like I've mentioned, all of this is some way of listening to feedback, getting listening to the customer, listening to the people that are going to use it, and based on that, acting. And we're still acting, we're still changing. If the market changes tomorrow and our customers say this is something else they want, we will try to adapt to that but without changing the vision of where we're going.
How does the Tech 1M fit into your own overall vision?
Oh, it's my overall vision. So I don't do anything that doesn't go with like I told you, integrity is big for me. So I don't do anything that I don't have passion for. There's no point. I don't do anything. It has to do two things. It has to help people, and then I have to make money. The two have to go side by side. So for me, I think Tech 1M is my cry of pretty much people are people. Provided they have the skills, regardless of their age, their sex, wherever they are, if they have the right opportunity, they should be able to deliver and make an impact. And Tech 1M is doing just that. Regardless of who you are, it doesn't really care. Provided you have the skills. Now you need to make yourself, everything is now on you. The opportunities are now right in front of you. You said you want this. Now we're showing it to you. Are you going to turn up? And then we're giving you everything possible. We have, we're creating partnerships with the likes of Udemy, with the likes of CAM to help people with their mental health. This is like talent on the other side. Well, so if you want to learn, then you could definitely still keep learning. But then once you've learned, you know that there's a platform here that you can actually find something that you say you want, not just what they say you need to do. Do you understand? So that's like the difference. So I think Tech 1M is that. And I think with the advancement of AI, it will keep learning. And to keep understanding what people want, and it's to keep changing. We want to be able to reduce the biases that you find when people are trying to hire. And with all this old technology advancements, we're going to use that as much as possible to advantage, to make sure that we're able to at least get close to this equality.
That's amazing. I find you incredibly inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
To you, so much, and I feel like I could sit down and talk to you for 3-4 hours. Easy.
I know. I'm like, this feels just like a chat.
I feel like I could. I've got my iPad here and I've got my notes and I haven't opened it once.
Oh, wow.
To look at anything. Because I feel like, just very incredibly inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
How I came across you in the first place was my wife follows you. And she was like, you can't get Tommie on the podcast.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. I had to look. I was like, yeah, you look perfect.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thankfully, we've got it here. And I feel like I could literally talk to you forever. But alas, we have to wrap up some stage.
I know.
Yeah, so just maybe like 1 or 2 questions, actually, before we finish up. What's your goal? Do you have a personal vision that you're working towards?
My personal vision is, I think pretty much what keeps me up at night and makes me want to do what I do. is I want my daughter to be able to get up and just know that she can be whatever she wants to be. And I think that's basically the drive. And I'm picking my daughter, not my son, because I feel like the gender and also the fact that we share the same skin. And I feel if I can do that, there's so many people like her, automatically it rubs off on my son, and it rubs off on a whole lot more children. So I think there's role models are needed, and if I'm seen as one, then I need to act like one. So I just feel like and this is me now being spiritual, I feel like I'm brought into this earth and I'm given so many things. I feel like God has given me a lot. And the only way I can live, because we're going to live with nothing, is that what impact have you made? What have I done on here? And provided I know I could do more, I'm not going to stop. So that is my goal, to make sure that I leave this world as better than I found it, and to make sure that my daughter sees that she can do the same and even 10 times better. Yeah.
And finally, to wrap up, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to drive some change in their own life, in their communities, some change in the world?
Be the change you want to see, that is the number one advice. So if you want to drive change, you be the change you want to see. Let other people be able to also look up to you. But then you also need to know that it's never going to be easy. Nothing is quick. When it's quick, you need to be careful. So it's going to be challenging. And you just need to know that whenever the challenges happen, you are very, very close. And that's the point where a lot of people turn back. But no, that's when you need to power on. So powering on allows you to see the light at the end of that tunnel. So I don't want to throw a lot of adage here, but Rome was never built in a day. So you need to know that whatever you want, and you want it so bad, and you're convinced that that's the right thing, just know that challenges are going to happen, but never give up regardless of the challenge. Just keep going, and definitely you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. As you're going up, you're going to meet so many people. The people you meet on your way up, you have to be kind, you have to be nice, and you have to make sure that you're learning from the people you meet on your way up as well as the people you meet on your way down, because life is in seasons. So that's kind of like my 2 cents on what I have learned so far. So if your general overview of life is be kind, be polite, do things to people as you want them to do unto you. And whenever you're going, regardless of who the person is, just make sure that, you see a beggar on the streets, this person might be someone that would help you in a few years from now. So just take that, and I think you'll be fine.
That's that. Amazing. So that's that.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, so incredibly inspired. As I'm listening to you talk, and I can hear you talk with a lot of passion, and your journey, your story, and the things you've learned, I'm like, wow. I'm thinking so much about myself as I'm talking.
Oh, wow.
As you're talking, thinking about and the 1,000 voices and where I want to take and everything like that. I'm like, wow, like so.
Yeah, good. And you take it there. It's just like like you're saying, like we're just at the beginning we're talking. Like it's not going to be easy. If it's going to be easy, then everyone would do it, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's a lot of things we didn't even have a chance to delve into on your side. You have a lot of very serious accolades. Some serious accolades. Like you've won a number of awards on different boards here, investor, like all sorts of accolades, like
as in
tech stars. There's a lot of things happening on your end, and maybe
another time.
Maybe if we ever do a part 2 or something like that, then we could delve into some other things. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Really
it was fun.
It
was fun talking to you.
Yeah, fun having you.
All right.
If people want to keep up to date with yourself and the work you do, how can they best do so?
So they could reach me on socials. I think I'm very social. So I'm on LinkedIn, Tommie Edwards, and Instagram. And I think it's just if you send a message, and I will definitely respond back to you.
Cool. Perfect. All right. That's that. Thank you for coming to the podcast once again. If you're listening, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. It helps us so much. It helps us immensely with trying to get out these stories of these very inspirational people we get on the podcast. So please do subscribe, like, and share. And get your friends that you share to like, subscribe, and share it to their friends as well. So we can get more of these positive stories out there, challenge some negative perceptions, and inspire some people along the way. But that's that for now. Thank you for coming to the podcast. That was Tommie Edwards. This is 1,000 Voices. And for now, we're out.